Imagine sitting in the basement of this, like, pitch black, long abandoned psychiatric hospital.
Oh, man. Just the thought of that is terrifying.
Right, the air is super heavy, it's thick with dust, and it's just completely silent down there.
And you're just holding this little plastic device, right?
Exactly. You're clutching this device that's rapidly scanning through radio frequencies, and it's creating this loud wall of harsh white noise.
It's just endless static.
Yeah, endless static. And then you ask the empty room a question, and out of nowhere, out of that static, a robotic voice answers you directly.
Forming a completely coherent, logically sound response.
Exactly. So the question is, are you communicating with the dead? Or is your highly evolved human brain, desperate for meaning, just playing this elaborate trick on you in the dark?
That is the ultimate question, isn't it?
It really is. So, welcome, learner, to another custom-tailored deep dive. If you have ever sat on your couch late at night watching a ghost show through your fingers...
We've all been there.
Yeah, totally. And you thought, wait a minute, did they just fake that? Or on the flip side, if you felt a chill run down your spine because you absolutely could not logically explain what you just saw, well, this deep dive is perfectly tailored for you.
It really is.
Yeah.
Today, we are examining the fascinating, the highly controversial, and, sometimes genuinely terrifying world of the hit reality television show, Ghost Adventures.
It's just such a wild world.
It completely upends our standard expectations of investigative media. We have a massive stack of sources to pull from today.
We really do. We've got everything from intense Reddit community discussions,
which are incredibly detailed.
Oh, they're basically doing digital forensics on Reddit.
Yeah.
Spearheaded by these longtime viewers. Plus, we have fan theories that break down individual frames of footage all the way to entertainment articles exposing some of the untold off-camera realities.
And what becomes immediately clear when you dive into this material is that the landscape of reality television paranormal investigation is uniquely murky.
It is the absolute definition of diagnostic muddy waters.
Yeah, it really is.
So our mission today is not just to give you a recap of spooky television episodes. We're digging deep into the mysteries that the show itself never fully explained.
We're going to explore those incredibly awkward incidents where evidence was blatantly faked by the people being investigated.
Oh, those are so hard to watch.
They really are. And we're also going to explore the incredibly dark, real-life tragedies associated with the cast that were legally or ethically kept off the air.
Yeah, the stuff they don't show you. And yes, we are absolutely going to analyze those undeniable jaw-dropping moments of paranormal activity that even the most hardcore, cynical skeptics cannot easily brush aside.
And, that is a vital distinction to make right at the outset. Because whether you are a die-hard believer in the supernatural who takes every cold chill as gospel, or a staunch skeptic who thinks the entire enterprise is just smoke, mirrors, and clever editing.
Which is a valid viewpoint.
Totally valid. But regardless of your stance, this show serves as a masterclass in modern folklore. It's a masterclass in entertainment psychology.
Exactly. We aren't just going to analyze the content of the broadcasts. We are going to unpack why it matters to our understanding of media literacy, how we process fear, and, the deeply ingrained human desire to believe that there is something beyond our physical reality.
So let's start at the absolute baseline of this premise.
Yeah, let's do it, because honestly, the reality of being a paranormal investigator on television has to be incredibly frustrating.
Oh, I can't even imagine.
I've always thought about it like a reality TV fishing show.
That's a really good analogy.
Right, because you can have the best boat, the most expensive sonar, and the top-tier bait, but you simply cannot catch a record-breaking marlin every single time you drop a line into the water.
You're going to have days where you catch absolutely nothing.
Exactly. Sometimes you sit out there for 14 hours getting sunburned and you catch an old boot. So what actually happens when a heavily funded television crew goes to a highly publicized haunted location, sets up hundreds of thousands of dollars of equipment, and finds absolutely zero evidence?
Well, it creates an incredibly fascinating dilemma for the producers.
It does. Or, taking it a step further, what happens when the people they are investigating get so desperate for their 15 minutes of fame that they try to fake the ghosts themselves?
Which is just wild to think about. But according to the deep dives done by fans on Reddit, there are a few infamous episodes where this exact, highly awkward scenario played out on camera.
Yes! Oh my gosh, let's talk about the Seattle one.
Yes. Perhaps the most notorious incident, the one that still sparks massive debate in the fandom today, is the episode colloquially known as Demons in Seattle.
I have gone so far down the rabbit hole on this specific episode, and the context is just wild.
It really is.
So, set the stage for us. The crew travels all the way to this suburban home in Washington state, expecting the motherlode of demonic activity, right?
Precisely. The homeowner, a guy named Keith Linder, had made some incredibly extreme claims. He wasn't just saying, like, a floorboard was creaking or that he felt a cold draft.
Right, he was going big.
Huge. He was reporting spontaneous fires breaking out in the home, demonic writing appearing on the walls, and even Bibles supposedly bursting into flames.
Wow. Those are cinematic, blockbuster-level claims of poltergeist activity.
Exactly. So the crew arrives, they set up their baseline tests, they deploy their static night vision cameras, and they basically wait for the chaos to unfold.
But instead of capturing shadow figures climbing the walls or objects levitating, the crew basically ends up conducting a criminal investigation on the homeowner himself.
Yeah, it turns into a total debunking mission.
They essentially accuse him of wasting their incredibly expensive production time and completely faking the evidence.
And the sheer absurdity of the faked evidence is what cements this episode in reality TV history. I mean, the crew began pointing out incredibly suspicious behavior from the homeowner, but the climax of the episode, the smoking gun, was the revelation of how the supposed poltergeist was throwing clothes around the room.
Oh, this is my favorite part.
The crew discovered that a pair of denim jeans had literally been nailed to the wall to simulate poltergeist activity.
Hold on, they use nails.
Actual nails.
I mean, if you are going to try and convince a professional camera crew that an ethereal, non-corporeal entity is violently throwing your laundry around the room, maybe don't use heavy-duty hardware to secure the pants to the drywall.
It completely defied logic. I mean, the behavior was so irrational and so easily debunked that the show's hosts essentially dropped the ghost hunting pretense and called the homeowner out on national television.
They just laid it all out there.
They aired the confrontation. But what is truly fascinating here, from a media standpoint, is the aftermath. Because the homeowner, Keith Linder, didn't just shrink away into obscurity.
No, he doubled down.
He felt he was framed by the show's editing to look like a fraud. So he started his own YouTube channel specifically to defend himself, posting his own videos, documentation, and counterclaims against the network's narrative.
Which creates this incredible meta layer for the viewer. I was reading the Reddit threads about this, and some fans noted that looking into Linder's side of the story actually shifted their perspective on the show.
How so?
Well, they started asking, wait, is the show manipulating the narrative to create a villain because they couldn't find a ghost? The audience suddenly went from investigating ghosts to investigating the investigators.
Exactly. It broke the fourth wall of paranormal reality television.
Yeah.
And that dynamic didn't stop in Seattle. If we look at season 21, the Panic in Amarillo episode, the ethical stakes get raised significantly.
Oh, this one is so dark.
It really is.
Yeah.
This wasn't just a guy nailing pants to a wall. This situation caused a massive local stir. The crew investigated a home where a mother was claiming that an unseen, violent demonic entity was physically attacking her and scratching her in her sleep.
But the static night vision cameras caught something entirely different, didn't they?
They did. The cameras clearly captured the woman actively scratching herself in the dark.
Wow.
Yeah. She had claimed to the crew that the deep, angry scratches were appearing in spots on her back and shoulders that she physically could not reach.
Right.
But the raw footage showed her literally contorting to reach those exact spots and inflicting the wounds herself. And this is where the show had to cross a very serious line.
Because this wasn't just a harmless hoax for television time.
Exactly.
There was a child involved, right?
Yes. There was a toddler living in the home who was also mysteriously developing these strange, unexplained marks and scratches.
Oh, that is awful.
The crew, realizing what they had likely uncovered, reportedly ended up calling Child Protective Services.
That is such a jarring tonal shift. I mean, you go from the campy, spooky premise of, hey, we're making a fun Friday night ghost show, to the grim reality of, oh wait, we have a legal and moral obligation as mandated reporters to call the state about potential child abuse.
It's essentially Munchausen syndrome by proxy playing out on a paranormal reality show.
It really is. And, you know, speaking of things playing out on camera, we have to talk about the Robert Bess live TV debacle.
Oh, the live broadcast.
Yeah, because it's one thing to catch a homeowner faking it in the editing room weeks later, but this happened on live television.
The Robert Bess incident is a legendary misstep. This occurred during a massive, highly promoted live Halloween broadcast in October 2009 at the Trans-Allegheny Lunatic Asylum.
A live Halloween special, what could go wrong?
Right. So to pad out the broadcast time, they brought on several guest investigators, including a man named Robert Bess, who claimed to have invented specialized paranormal detection equipment.
Okay.
During the live broadcast, Bess is walking down a dark hallway, and he suddenly shouts, claiming that an electromagnetic field meter, an EMF reader, was violently knocked out of his hand by an aggressive spirit.
But the internet is utterly undefeated.
Undefeated.
Viewers sitting at home, watching in real time, immediately notice that if you just watch his hand, no unseen force hit the device. He literally just hurled the piece of plastic himself.
He threw it.
He chucked it down the hallway like a baseball. It was so blatantly obvious that the internet erupted immediately.
The backlash was so swift and undeniable that the hosts, Zach Bagans and Nick Groff, were forced to do damage control.
I remember this.
They actually hosted a follow-up post-mortem episode where they publicly debunked their own guest on their own network. They went on the record, showed the slowdown footage, and explicitly concluded that there was absolutely zero paranormal activity involved in that meter leaving Bess's hand.
They just threw him right under the bus.
He threw it, and they called it out.
Okay, I have to stop you here because this raises a massive question about reality television production.
Let's hear it.
If I am the executive producer of a show that relies on the audience believing in ghosts, why on earth would I air these episodes?
That's a fair point.
Right. Why show the audience that the pants are nailed to the wall, or that the woman is scratching herself, or that the guest is throwing the equipment? Doesn't exposing the fakes actively destroy the show's credibility?
It's a very logical question, but counterintuitively, airing the fakes is actually a brilliant, highly calculated narrative tool.
Wait, really?
Yes. By showcasing faked hauntings and aggressively calling out the hoaxers, the hosts are establishing themselves as honest brokers to the audience.
How so?
They're implicitly communicating a message to the viewer. They're basically saying, look, we aren't gullible. We don't just believe every creaking door or every wild claim. We are rigorous investigators, and we are skeptics, too.
Oh, wow. I see what you mean.
It builds this profound trust reservoir. Subconsciously, this tactic convinces the viewer that later on in the season, when the crew does claim to capture a genuine shadow figure or a disembodied voice, it must be completely real.
Because if it wasn't, they would have told us.
Exactly. The logic follows that if the evidence were fake, the hosts would have called it out, just like they did in Seattle or Amarillo. It inoculates them against skepticism.
Wow. That is psychologically brilliant. It's almost manipulative, but it makes perfect sense. They sacrifice the credibility of a guest to elevate their own status as arbiters of truth.
Yes, exactly.
But here is where the sources get really fascinating. Because if calling out fakes builds credibility, what happens when the audience starts turning that highly trained critical eye away from the guests and onto the crew themselves?
The turning of the tide.
We see this massive transition in the Reddit archives, right? Moving from fans debunking the homeowners to fans theorizing that the crew is actively manufacturing the evidence.
It's a natural evolution of media literacy among a dedicated fan base. I mean, the more you teach your audience to look for wires and nailed-up genes, the better they get at spotting the seams in your own production.
That makes total sense.
And the fans noted a very stark structural difference between the early days of the show and the later seasons.
Break that difference down for us. What changed?
Well, in the early documentary and the first few seasons, viewers noticed that the seasons had a seemingly random, inconsistent number of episodes.
Like season 1 might have 8 and season 2 might have 12?
Exactly. And the prevalent, widely accepted theory among the fan base is that in the beginning, the crew operated with more investigative integrity. If they locked themselves in a supposedly haunted hospital for a weekend and found absolutely nothing, no voices, no moving objects, just dust and raccoons, they simply didn't air it.
They tossed the footage.
They tossed it.
But as the show exploded in popularity and became a massive juggernaut for the Travel Channel, the economics of television took over.
Right, you have quotas to meet.
You have massive syndication quotas. You have advertisers paying for specific time slots. You cannot simply throw away a week of expensive production and crew salaries just because the ghosts didn't feel like performing.
You just can't do it.
So fans started to notice that as the seasons wore on, the crew always found something. Every single episode, without fail, had a major paranormal event.
Which brings us directly to what the fandom refers to as the Nick Groff theory.
Oh, this is a big one.
It's huge. Nick Groff was one of the 3 original founding members of the crew. He was there from the beginning, and he was a core part of the show's identity.
Right.
When he eventually abruptly departed the show after season 10, it sparked massive speculation that continues to this day.
So why do fans think he left?
Well, the prevailing fan theory is that Nick left because the threshold for evidence was becoming far too exaggerated. The theory suggests that network executives or producers were increasingly pushing the crew to manufacture or highly embellish activity to guarantee an exciting dramatic episode every week.
And Nick wasn't having it.
Supposedly, Nick wasn't comfortable compromising the original investigative premise.
Now, we have to be fair to our sources here. When Nick left and eventually started his own competing paranormal shows, like Paranormal Lockdown, he never publicly trashed Ghost Adventures.
No, he was very professional.
He never gave an explosive interview explicitly saying Zach fakes the evidence. But while Nick stayed quiet, the fans certainly haven't.
Oh, the fans have been very vocal.
Let's look at some of these specific frame-by-frame debunks from the Reddit sleuths, because some of these are damning.
The fans are incredibly observant, operating almost like digital forensics teams. For example, a frequently cited moment occurs in season 22, episode 3.
Okay, what happens here?
Right around the 29-minute mark, the crew is investigating a dark, vertical shaft in a building. They claim that an unseen entity is violently pulling on a fishing line that they've dangled down into the dark abyss.
It's presented as this terrifying display of poltergeist strength, right?
Exactly.
Yeah.
However, eagle-eyed viewers started scrubbing through the footage frame by frame. They pointed out that if you watch the edge of the frame closely, you can clearly see a crew member, Billy, physically rotating his wrist to pull the line himself.
No way.
Yes. The tension on the line aligns perfectly with his muscle movements.
Oh, that's brutal. But wait, I've seen that clip and I have to play devil's advocate for a second.
Go for it.
Couldn't you argue that Billy was just reacting to the line being pulled by the ghost? Like, if a fish bites your line, your wrist jerks in response, right? How can fans definitively prove he was the initiator of the movement?
It's fair pushback, and honestly, that's often the defense the True relies on. But the fans argue it's about the biomechanics of the movement.
Like, it looks intentional.
Right. The wrist rotation appears deliberate and anticipatory, rather than a natural reaction. But even if we grant them the benefit of the doubt on the fishing line, the infamous coat rack incident from an earlier season is much harder to defend.
Oh, yes. Let's unpack the coat rack. This is a classic moment.
So in this scene, Zach is walking down a very dark, narrow hallway. Suddenly, a heavy wooden coat rack falls over, seemingly aiming right for him.
It's a really great jump scare.
It is, but when fans analyzed the framing and the blocking of the scene, they found the logistics highly suspicious. Nick Groff was leading the way, walking backward in the pitch black, filming Zach with a camera.
Okay.
And fans noted that Nick just happened to be standing suspiciously close to the heavy base of the coat rack pole right before it magically tipped over.
So the implication is that Nick literally just kicked the base in the dark while filming, causing it to fall towards Zach for the camera.
That is the widespread consensus among skeptical fans. I mean, it requires no complex rigging, just a tap with a boot in the dark.
That's hilarious. And we can't talk about faked evidence without discussing the physical reactions, specifically the endless possessions.
Oh, the possessions.
This is something that drives the Reddit communities insane. In the early documentary and the first few seasons, feeling physically overwhelmed by dark energy was treated as a very rare, deeply alarming occurrence.
It was a big deal, but as the show progressed, fans point out that it became Zach Bagans' default reaction.
Yes.
In later seasons, Zach constantly claims to be affected, drained, or outright possessed by demonic energy. Viewers mockingly note his physical acting during these moments.
It's so over the top.
He gets these wild, wide, unblinking eyes. What one Reddit user hilariously dubbed Four Loko eyes.
Yeah.
And he begins acting highly aggressive, puffing out his chest and barking orders at his crew members.
Yes, fans constantly joke that if you were truly possessed by an ancient, malevolent Mesopotamian demon, you probably wouldn't just dramatically puff out your chest and tell your camera guy to shut up.
Right, you'd probably be doing some actual horrifying physical damage.
It feels like pure theatrical posturing to create interpersonal drama when the ghosts aren't performing. And my absolute favorite debunk from the fans relates to the cold spots.
Ah, the thermal fluctuations.
Right, because a staple of ghost hunting is that a sudden drop in ambient temperature means a spirit is drawing energy from the room to manifest.
It's ghost hunting 101.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So the crew gets incredibly dramatic, shivering, talking about an icy chill enveloping them. But in one particular episode, the camera pans up just an inch too high, and viewers clearly see that the crew is standing directly underneath a massive, actively running industrial air conditioning vent.
Which perfectly encapsulates the core tension of the show's later years.
It really does. Okay, I have a major fundamental question for you regarding all of this, because I am genuinely confused by the logistics of it.
Sure, lay it on me.
If this crew has allegedly been faking or heavily exaggerating their evidence for over 20 seasons, spanning over a decade and a half of television production, involving dozens of rotating crew members, camera operators, and sound guys, how has no one definitively caught them?
Well, what do you mean by definitively caught them?
I mean, how do you fake things for that long without a massive leak? Why haven't we ever heard a hot mic picking up a producer whispering, "Okay, Nick, kick the coat rack on 3"?
Right.
Why hasn't a disgruntled former intern leaked a production memo outlining the scripted jump scares? Without a major, undeniable whistleblower, how does a production actually get away with a conspiracy of that scale for 15 years?
That is the perfect question to ask, and the answer is actually incredibly simple, and it has to do with the technology they use.
The ghost gear.
Exactly.
Oh.
You don't need a massive, coordinated, highly secretive production conspiracy. You don't need scripted cues or a smoking gun memo if the pseudoscientific equipment you are relying on naturally produces false positives.
Oh, that makes sense.
The secret to their longevity is plausible deniability, built right into the hardware.
I need you to break that down for me. How does the hardware fake the evidence for them?
Let's look at the cornerstone of their investigative equipment, the spirit box. You see this device in almost every single episode.
Right, it's that little radio thing.
Often it's a small handheld radio scanner, like the PSB-7 model. The underlying paranormal theory is that spirits can manipulate white noise or radio frequencies to form audible words.
Oh, I follow.
But what the device is physically doing mechanically is rapidly scanning through live AM and FM radio bands. It doesn't stop on a station, it sweeps through them at a set rate, usually between 100 to 300 milliseconds per frequency jump.
So it's essentially just generating a constant wall of static, but that static is heavily peppered with tiny fraction of a second chunks of actual live radio broadcasts.
Precisely. Because it is scanning active radio towers, it is incredibly common for it to catch a microsecond of a local DJ speaking, a snippet of a car commercial, or a vocal run from a pop song.
Ah, so like a local sports radio announcer excitedly yells touchdown just as the spirit box sweeps past their specific frequency.
Exactly. Now combine that mechanical reality with human psychology. There is a psychological phenomenon called pareidolia, where the human brain is hardwired to find familiar patterns in random data.
Like seeing shapes in clouds.
Exactly. It's why we see faces in the clouds or the man in the moon. But we also have audio pareidolia. Our brains want to make sense of noise.
Right.
So in the heat of the moment, you are standing in the pitch-black basement of a terrifying abandoned prison. Your adrenaline is spiking. Your cortisol levels are through the roof. The spirit box blips out a random syllable from a radio commercial.
And your terrified brain instantly contorts that random syllable into a demonic threat.
Yes. The crew genuinely, or perhaps semi-genuinely, leaning into the theatrics, misinterprets the radio bleed. They project their fear onto the static.
Wow.
They aren't writing a script that says, "Zach, act terrified when the radio says touchdown." The machine does what the machine is built to do, and human psychology takes over.
That is so interesting.
It provides perfect plausible deniability. If a skeptic on the internet calls them out, the crew can honestly say, "Hey, we didn't rig anything. We were just reacting in real time to the audio that the device outputted."
That is fascinating. There's no whistleblower because the faking isn't a deliberate, malicious, coordinated hoax. It's a theatrical exaggeration of natural, explainable, technical glitches.
Exactly.
The equipment provides the ink blot, and the hosts just dramatically announce what they see in it.
It's a self-sustaining loop of technical flaws and confirmation bias.
But as much as we can analyze the manufactured television drama and the technical glitches, we have to transition into a much heavier aspect of our sources.
Yes, the tone shifts quite a bit here.
Because sometimes the mysteries that Ghost Adventures leaves unexplained aren't ghosts at all. Sometimes they are details that the crew, legally or ethically, simply cannot discuss on the air. And this is where the show intersects with real-life horror.
We see this tension vividly illustrated in the episode titled A Haunting in Scottsdale. This episode stands out as a massive anomaly in the show's catalog.
Why is that?
Well, throughout the entire broadcast, Zach Bagans repeatedly states directly to the camera that he cannot share the details of what actually happened on the property prior to their arrival.
Which is incredibly frustrating as a viewer. He emphasizes over and over that something terrible, something incredibly dark occurred in the house, but his hands are tied.
And of course, if you tell the internet that they aren't allowed to know a secret, they will make it their life's mission to uncover it.
Oh, absolutely. The Reddit threads dedicated to unpacking this specific episode are wild, operating like amateur true crime boards. Fans were desperate to fill in the blank spaces the show left behind.
The theories ranged from the plausible to the outright cinematic.
What were the main theories?
Some users logically speculated that there was an ongoing open murder trial connected to the property, which would legally explain a network gag order, preventing them from discussing the specifics of the crime scene.
Okay, that makes sense legally.
Others dug into local Arizona news archives and proposed darker scenarios. That a woman had escaped a horrific, prolonged kidnapping situation in the home, or that a woman had brutally murdered her own mother there.
Wow, those are heavy.
Another prominent theory posited that it was a tragic suicide, and the grieving family had specifically requested privacy from the Travel Channel, allowing the investigation to air, but censoring the victim's details.
And the confusion was only compounded when a supposedly local Reddit user chimed in, claiming to know the absolute truth.
Oh, the wrong house theory.
Yes. This user stated that the tragic death didn't even happen in that specific house. They claimed the violence occurred 500 feet away in a completely different home down the street, and the show was simply conflating the locations to create a better narrative.
Whatever the actual historical truth of the Scottsdale property is, the negative energy left behind, whether paranormal or purely psychological, was reportedly intense.
It really was.
A fan shared a story on Reddit about actually taking a local paranormal tour of this exact Scottsdale house long after the episode aired.
And this fan's experience sounds genuinely traumatic. They claim that during the tour, they were physically choked by an unseen evil spirit that identified itself through the equipment as Paul.
Which is terrifying.
And according to this fan, the spirit used the paranormal devices to explicitly and aggressively call them a whore. The negative energy in the house became so overwhelming, and the experiences of the tourists so aggressive, that the homeowner eventually had to stop offering tours altogether and shut the location down.
It highlights a very fine, often blurry line that the show walks and sometimes severely crosses.
Yeah.
We are talking about the intersection of paranormal entertainment and real, tangible human suffering.
Yeah.
And no situation in the history of the show illustrates this devastating reality more than the Constantino tragedy.
Yeah, we really need to talk about this, and it is a genuinely heart-waking part of the deep dive.
It is.
For those listening to us who might not be familiar with the extended cast of the show, Mark and Debbie Constantino were very frequent, highly beloved guest investigators. They appeared on numerous episodes over the years.
They were presented to the audience as absolute experts in capturing EVP's electronic voice phenomena.
For context, EVPs are captured using highly sensitive digital audio recorders. The theory is that spirits can imprint their voices directly onto the digital tape at frequencies outside normal human hearing, and investigators boost the audio later to hear the messages.
And the Constantinos were masters at this specific technique. They were fixtures not just on the show, but within the broader global paranormal community.
But behind the scenes, away from the spooky lighting and the television cameras, there was a severe, highly documented history of domestic violence.
It's just so tragic.
And in September 2015, this escalating abuse culminated in a horrific, real-life murder-suicide in Nevada.
The details are harrowing. After an extensive, hours-long SWAT standoff at an apartment complex, Mark murdered Debbie, along with another unnamed man, before taking his own life.
It's just devastating. I mean, you spend years watching these people on your television screen hunting for scary things in the dark, treating fear as a fun adrenaline-pumping game. And then a tragedy like this hits, and it completely shatters the illusion. It forces you to realize that the real monsters in this world aren't shadow figures in abandoned hospitals. The real monsters are human beings.
It creates a profound cognitive dissonance for the viewer, and it raises a really deep ethical question about the media we consume.
What's the question?
Where is the line between exploring the dark history of a location for our Friday night entertainment and actively exploiting real, fresh human tragedy.
That is the question, isn't it? When is a murder old enough to be fun to investigate?
That is the central, uncomfortable tension of the entire true crime genre, and it bleeds heavily into paranormal entertainment. There is a jarring disconnect between the safe, campy fear of a television ghost.
Like the orchestrated jump scares and the spooky music.
Exactly, and the devastating, messy reality of actual human violence. When a paranormal show investigates a murder site from the 1800s, like a Victorian workhouse, it feels abstract to the viewer. It feels like a storybook.
Right. We don't feel a personal connection to a victim from 1890.
Exactly. But when the violence is recent, or, as in the Constantino's case, when it involves the cast members themselves, that safe theatrical distance collapses completely.
It really does.
It urges the viewer to stop looking at these locations as just spooky sets designed for our amusement and to truly consider the real grieving people behind these haunted histories. It forces a reckoning with how we commodify tragedy.
It forces you to remember that real blood was spilled, real families were destroyed. It's not just an edgy origin story for a demon to boost television ratings.
No, it's not.
And that brings us to an interesting pivot. Because that immersion in darkness, that constant commodification of the macabre, clearly takes a psychological toll. The dark themes of this show undeniably bleed into the personal lives of the cast.
They absolutely do.
And we have to transition to the frontman himself, Zach Bagans. Because his real-life pursuit of the paranormal off-camera has sparked some of the most intense controversies and ethical debates in the show's history.
Zach Bagans has meticulously positioned himself over the years, not just as a reality television host, but as an eccentric archivist of the dark and unusual.
Oh, for sure.
He runs a massive haunted museum in Las Vegas, and his acquisitions for this museum are often deeply controversial and boundary-pushing.
Like the van.
Yes. For instance, in 2015, sources like Looper know that Bagans paid $32,000 to purchase the actual physical van that belonged to Dr. Jack Kevorkian.
Dr. Kevorkian, just for context, is the man notoriously known as Dr. Death, who assisted in the suicides of roughly 130 terminally ill patients in the back of that exact van.
It's incredibly morbid.
Now, Zach didn't just buy this van as a morbid historical curiosity. He explicitly claimed to the press that the van called out to him. He stated he wanted to investigate its energy. He was drawn to the aura of death surrounding it.
It's a very specific brand of showmanship. And that desire to physically possess the paranormal reached its absolute peak with the saga of the Demon House in Gary, Indiana.
Oh, the Demon House. This story is wild.
In 2014, Zach purchased a small, unassuming home that was widely reported in the national press to be severely infested with demons. And crucially, this wasn't just local neighborhood gossip.
Right.
These paranormal reports were actually corroborated by local police officers and Child Protective Services workers who went on the record reporting that they witnessed inexplicable, physics-defying events in the home, like children levitating or walking backward up walls.
It was one of the most documented cases of supposed demonic activity in modern American history. So Zach buys it, right? Because of course he does. It's the ultimate prize.
Of course.
But the story doesn't end with him just filming a typical Ghost Adventures lockdown and airing it on the Travel Channel. Zach claimed that the energy in this house was so profoundly oppressive, so intensely dark, that it began making his crew physically ill.
He claimed he couldn't even exercise the property. He legitimately came to believe the house was an active, open portal to hell.
So what is his solution to an open portal to hell?
Well, in 2016, he brings in heavy machinery and has the entire house completely demolished, leveled to the ground.
But he doesn't just throw the wood and the drywall in a local landfill.
No?
He takes the rubble, the dirt, the remnants of the portal, and he stores it all in a sealed, locked facility. He claimed he had to contain it so the demonic energy couldn't escape and infect the surrounding area.
It is the most absurd, comic book level escalation of a real estate purchase I have ever heard.
It is a remarkable piece of self-mythologizing, but his off-camera endeavors aren't just limited to real estate and morbid artifacts. They often involve very real, living people who aggressively push back against his narratives.
Yeah.
The very public dispute with spirit advocate Bonnie Vent is a prime example of this friction.
Oh, the Cosmopolitan Hotel incident. This is a great example of reality TV editing versus reality.
So Bonnie Vent guest starred on an episode, and during the final television broadcast, the show's narration claimed that she became completely possessed by ancient Native American spirits and began involuntarily performing a ritual dance in the middle of the room.
It made for great television. However, Vent publicly blasted the show and Zach Bagans immediately afterward.
Good for her.
She posted a lengthy rebuttal on her own website, firmly stating that she was absolutely not possessed. She clarified that the dance she was doing wasn't an ancient Native American ritual at all. She was simply performing an old-fashioned Mexican tarantella dance.
Wow.
She claims she was just getting into the flow of the energy of the room, but the show's producers entirely fabricated the possession narrative in the editing bay to add drama.
It's truly amazing how a joyful Mexican tarantella turns into a terrifying demonic Native American possession just by adding spooky music and a voiceover.
It really is.
But that brings us to arguably the most ethically fraught controversy Zach ever inserted himself into, the Carmel Mission Church incident.
This occurred in 2015 following Pope Francis's highly publicized decision to canonize Father Junipero Serra.
And Father Serra is an incredibly controversial historical figure in California, right?
Yes. The Catholic Church credits him with bringing Christianity to the Western states and establishing the mission system. However, many Native American groups argue, with extensive historical documentation, that he was responsible for the brutal subjugation, cultural genocide, and enslavement of their ancestors.
It's a very painful history.
When the canonization was announced, it sparked very real, very intense, deeply painful protests by Native American groups at the church in Carmel, California, where he is buried.
And I want to pause here to be very clear to you listening. We are not taking a side on the historical legacy of Father Serra, nor are we debating the theology of canonization.
Right, we're just looking at the sources.
We are simply reporting on the historical context provided in our sources to understand what happened next. Because what we are looking at is how Zach Bagans reacted to this very real-world, deeply sensitive racial and historical tension.
Bagans actively sought to capitalize on the pain of that moment. He went to the local press, specifically the Monterey Herald, and stated that the intense emotional energy from the living Native American protesters outside the church was stirring up the spirits of the Native American ancestors buried on the grounds.
Wow.
He claimed he was hearing stories of aggressive hauntings inside the mission because the dead didn't want to be buried near Father Serra. And he publicly stated he desperately wanted to get his cameras in there and investigate this racial unrest.
This is where it gets really deeply interesting from a psychological perspective. Zach isn't just a TV host anymore, standing in the dark asking if anyone is there. He operates like a modern-day P.T. Barnum of the paranormal.
That's the perfect way to put it.
He's buying Kevorkian's death van. He's buying literal portals to hell and locking the cursed dirt in a vault. He is looking at a highly sensitive, painful racial protest regarding historical genocide, and all he sees is a neon billboard for ghost hunting. He has become a collector of curses.
That P.T. Barnum analogy is incredibly apt. When we analyze the psychology of the showman archetype, we see how Zach deliberately, masterfully blurs the line between a supposedly objective scientific investigator and a theatrical provocateur.
He knows exactly what he's doing.
By purchasing these items, by dramatically destroying the demon house, and by inserting himself into real-world cultural controversies, he turns himself into a character within his own lore. He makes it completely impossible for the audience to separate the man from the myth. He becomes part of the haunted attraction himself.
Exactly. He is no longer just investigating the ghost story. He is the ghost story. He's building his own haunted legacy.
He really is.
But listen, we have covered a lot of ground here. With all of these controversies, the heavily debunked fakes, the theatrical showmanship, the four loco eyes, the manipulative editing, why do millions of people still tune in every single week?
That's the big question.
Why are there massive Reddit communities dedicating thousands of hours of their lives to analyzing every frame of this show?
Because amid all the filler, the theatrics, and the radiostatic pareidolia, every so often, the crew captures a piece of evidence that defies all rational, mundane explanation.
Yes. The undeniable moments, the 10% that keeps us coming back. Let's look at the absolute holy grail of Ghost Adventures evidence, the Goldfield Hotel.
Ah, the Goldfield Hotel.
This spans all the way back to their original 2004 documentary, and they returned to it years later in Season 7, Episode 16, appropriately titled Redemption.
The physical evidence they captured at the Goldfield Hotel remains some of the most compelling and heavily scrutinized footage in paranormal television history.
It's iconic.
They captured a solid, heavy brick levitating completely off the ground and launching itself across a room. A heavy wooden beam falls from the ceiling. A rock physically flies through the air and hits Zach.
And crucially, despite years of analysis by skeptics, there are no strings, no wires, and no human hands visible anywhere in the frame.
The objects are shown clearly sitting idle before they move, completely ruling out simple editing tricks or hidden crew members.
I was reading the Reddit threads, and fans still point to the flying brick as the exact moment that hooked them on the paranormal.
I believe it.
But it's not just the old, grainy documentary footage. Look at the investigation of the Stone Lion Inn from season 14. They capture a heavy, solid wooden door opening on its own and then violently slamming shut. Now, immediately, a skeptic would say, come on, someone just pulled it with a fishing line from the other side.
Right. The easiest to debunk for a moving door is a hidden wire.
But the crew anticipated that. They specifically set up 2 distinct static camera angles covering both sides of the door simultaneously.
Which is very smart to investigate.
The resulting footage completely rules out strings, wires, or a crew member hiding in a blind spot. You can see both sides of the door at the exact moment it slams. It is genuinely baffling.
The visual anomalies are certainly strong, but often it's their audio captures that leave viewers truly unsettled, because audio is much harder to explain away with a hidden wire.
That's very true.
A prime example is their investigation of the Remington Arms Factory. The crew set up static cameras on 2 completely different floors of the massive, empty factory, rolling simultaneously. Both cameras pick up the ambient, distant sound of a car horn outside the building, proving that the audio on both cameras is perfectly synced and functioning normally.
Okay, so we have an audio baseline.
Yes. But suddenly, only one of the cameras captures the deafening, localized, unmistakable sound of gunshot ringing out indoors.
Wow.
The camera on the other floor picks up absolutely nothing but silence.
I need you to explain the physics of that to me. How do you fake a gunshot that only registers on one microphone in a cavernous, empty factory with echoing concrete floors?
It's incredibly difficult to fake.
If a crew member fired a blank, both mics would have picked up the echo. You can't fake localized acoustics like that without massive post-production audio manipulation, which skeptics have never been able to prove they used in that instance.
And then, beyond the loud bangs, there's the emotional audio evidence. They investigate the home of the man who literally invented their ghost hunting equipment, the Menel meter.
The millimeter is a fascinating piece of tech. It was designed to measure both electromagnetic fields and ambient temperature simultaneously.
And the inventor named it the Menel meter after his deceased daughter, Melissa.
Right, so they are investigating his home, and while using his equipment, they capture an EVP, an electronic voice phenomenon, on their digital recorder of what sounds exactly like a young girl's voice, clear as day, saying, "Hey, Dad."
It's incredibly chilling, but it's also deeply moving. It transcends the jump scares.
And we absolutely cannot discuss audio evidence without mentioning the most famous viral exchange in the show's entire history.
Oh, I know exactly what you're going to say.
Zach is standing in an empty room holding the spirit box, and he asks a direct mathematical question. He says, "How many of us are here right now?"
And the spirit box, sweeping through radio static, instantly responds with a clear, robotic-sounding voice that says, "Do the math."
And the crew loses their minds. Aaron, another crew member, immediately screams, "Do the math," and Billy screams, "Oh, wait, my God." It is a moment of pure reactive chaos.
It really is.
But think about the statistical improbability of that moment. What are the odds that a device randomly sweeping AM radio stations happens to catch a DJ saying, "Do the math" at the exact millisecond after Zach asks a numerical question? It is statistically staggering.
It challenges the pareidolia explanation for sure. And when we look at the visual apparitions they've caught, it adds another layer of complexity. The Reddit thread dedicated to their best evidence is essentially a nightmare fuel highlight reel.
Oh, totally.
You have the massive, dark, twisting mass they captured peeking behind a concrete pillar in the Sacramento tunnels. You have the full-bodied apparition they caught reflecting clearly in a mirror at the Winchester Mystery House. And the ceiling fan at the DeSoto Hotel in the Route 666 episode that just turns on and physically spins itself without power.
What's so compelling about these specific pieces of evidence is how hard they are to debunk. I mean, a skeptic can easily dismiss Zach claiming he feels angry or a cold chill.
Because that's subjective.
Exactly. But dual camera setups that definitively rule out physical interference or localized audio anomalies like the Remington Arms gunshot require incredibly convoluted, complex explanations to debunk. Sometimes the debunking theory sounds crazier than just admitting it might be a ghost.
Which is exactly what anchors the show's enduring credibility.
I read a brilliant analogy from a Reddit user regarding why the specific evidence hits the audience so hard. They said, think about clips of real unplanned stunt accidents on movie sets. When things go wrong, the terror and concern on the actors' faces is palpable. You can't fake that visceral primal dread.
That's a great point.
When these guys are truly terrified on ghost adventures, you can feel it through the screen. Their masks drop.
That perspective is incredibly validating for the audience. It acknowledges the reality of television production while preserving the core mystery. Even if you, as a viewer, completely concede that 80 to 90% of the show is theatrical filler, exaggerated reactions, or myth-identified radio static, that remaining 10% is incredibly potent.
It's the 10% that matters.
That 10% taps into a genuine, universal, evolutionary human fear of the unknown. When the crew experiences that unexplainable 10%, their primal physiological reaction cannot be acted.
It's the stark difference between being mildly startled by a jack-in-the-box and the heart-stopping realization that a stranger is standing silently behind you in the dark.
Exactly.
So what does this all mean for us? Let's take a breath and recap this absolutely crazy journey. We started at the very bottom, looking at desperate homeowners nailing jeans to the drywall in Seattle to get their 15 minutes of fame.
We looked at the tragic, devastating reality of domestic violence that shattered the illusion of the show's fun, spooky atmosphere.
We explored Zach Bagans transforming himself into a paranormal ringmaster, hoarding cursed artifacts and burying portals to hell.
And we ended with flying bricks, localized gunshots, and disembodied voices that keep us all sleeping with the hallway lights on.
It is a vast, complicated spectrum of human behavior, deception, and belief. But if we want to tie it all together into a central thesis, I want to leave you with a concept to mull over regarding the technology itself.
Okay, let's hear it.
Think about the equipment they rely on. We discussed the spirit box sweeping frequencies, but they also frequently use the SLS camera.
Right, the camera that draws the little stick figures on the screen.
Explain how that actually works, because it seems like magic on the show.
It's not magic, it's actually repurposed video game technology.
Wait, really? A video game?
Yes. The SLS camera stands for Structured Light Sensor. It is literally built from a modified Xbox Kinect sensor.
That is wild.
What it does is project thousands of tiny infrared dots into a room, an invisible grid. The software was originally designed to look for human joints, a head, 2 arms, 2 legs, so you could play tennis on your Xbox without a controller.
Okay, I remember those.
But when you strip that software out of the video game console and point it into a dark, cluttered basement, the algorithm goes into overdrive. It desperately tries to map human stick figures onto random shapes, like a chair, or a coat rack, or a shadow.
So it's literally an algorithm designed to find human shapes, forcing a human shape onto non-human objects.
Exactly. So what if we view all of this equipment, the spirit box, the SLS camera, the EMF readers, not as objective scientific diagnostic instruments, but as a technological Rorschach test?
A technological ink blot test. Oh, I love that concept.
When we look at the stick figures on the SLS camera or listen to the radio static of the spirit box, are we actually capturing the literal voices and shapes of the dead?
Or have we simply invented incredibly expensive high-tech ink blots that force our highly evolved human brains to do what they do best?
Which is find patterns, find faces, and find voices in the random chaotic static of the universe. Perhaps the most enduring ghost on this show, the real mystery that was never fully explained, is simply human psychology. We are desperate to find meaning. We are desperate to know that we aren't alone in the dark.
That is exactly it. That is the core of the human condition. We want the diagnostic X-ray to show us the broken bone so we know how to fix it. We want the ghost hunting gadget to definitively show us the afterlife, to prove that death isn't the end, even if we have to squint really hard to see it in the static.
Well said.
Thank you for joining us on this deep dive into the murky, terrifying, and endlessly fascinating waters of the paranormal. Keep questioning the unknown, keep critically analyzing the media you consume, and maybe just look a little closer the next time a floorboard creaks in the dark.